in certain industries in particular, like healthcare, for instance, they're using a lot more AI at the moment. And that's because it's high volume, high frequency, high volume types of roles. And kind of figuring out like how to bring that into play, I think has been key.
I've noticed there's also this big emphasis and focus on networking and relationship. And that's something that I hear a lot, where there's a lot more demand now, a lot more people going to in-person events like dinners. There's a lot more dinners that are popping up where people are building connection, and then just community in general.
So I think that we're getting back to where people want to have more intimate conversations with the right people that could potentially help them. And if it's online or if it's even on social, wherever, right, it just feels like you're going through a stream of noise.
Because the best BD is always intentional. It's always got context. It always feels a little bit different, or it resonates in a different way. And I think using AI to be able to do that, like you said, like find that right information, understand the timing, use that data to figure out who's going to be my next ICP.
Joel Lalgee and Marcus Sawyerr welcome you to AI and Recruiting, the show where they break down how AI is transforming hiring, leadership, and the future of work. Expect real talk, smart tools, and bold conversations with the people shaping what's next. Let's get into it.
Welcome to AI in Recruiting. I am your co-host, Joel Lalgee. I am happy, as always, to be with the esteemed Marcus Sawyerr, CEO of EQ. Great to have you here. Great to be with you again, Marcus. You've been doing a lot over the last few weeks. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so firstly, always good to connect with you, Joel. Looking forward to having our discussion, our weekly conversation, and allowing people to listen in.
Yep.
I've been traveling a little bit, so as what I really like to do is connect with customers. I went to the SIA. We had quite a few customers there, and I was in Dallas, so staffing industry analyst for those that are in our industry. And then I actually had a local event recently. I was speaking at the Oakland Museum, and that was happening. And in between, been building products and solutions and selling and speaking to customers. So it's been a combination of connecting and building. How about you? What have you been up to?
I have I've not been doing as much traveling. I've got some traveling coming up. But yeah, been connecting with a lot of HR leaders, a lot of executives out there, and just trying to get a pulse on the market, seeing who's moving. You know, obviously, I think we're still seeing a lot of growth in certain sectors. Some sectors have kind of slowed down a little bit. But over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've actually seen some encouraging signs of just movement with some of these executive levels as well. So it's been good. And then obviously every conversation I have, I always like to ask, you know, what are you doing with AI? What are you excited about? What are you looking at? And just kind of great to really see how much of an impact AI is having in business, and definitely top of mind for everyone, which is why we do this podcast, which is great.
What are you hearing in your conversations?
Yeah, I think there's still, I think, a lot of external pressure on leaders to have the plan, right? Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? There's definitely a lot more thought around before you hire, really taking a look and seeing, you know, do we need this scope of what this hire is going to bring, or can we use automation or AI or tech instead of making the hire? And I know a lot of large companies, I think we've talked about this before, but a lot of large companies have made the headlines saying before you hire, you've really got to justify the human over the technology. So I think that's just going throughout businesses. So I think from an HR standpoint, it's looking at not only how you're going to use AI in HR functions, but how you're gonna add that into the business overall. What does workforce planning look like? And obviously, coming up to the end of the year, a lot of companies are thinking about their workforce planning for next year as well. So yeah, it's a higher level. And I also get the comment a lot, which is why I love doing this podcast with you. I get a comment a lot saying there's a lot of high level conversations around AI, but there's not always a lot of tactical conversations on like how you need to think about things and how you can implement things. So it's another reason I love doing this show is just hearing from you. You know, obviously you're building with AI and you're on the forefront. So I think it's a ton of value there for our listeners.
There are actually a fair amount of companies who've started or tried to implement AI, but one of the conversations we were having offline is how do you leverage it to its full capacity? And it always goes back to what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think's opened up as well is like, what problem are you trying to solve? And then the thing I'm hearing more of and I'm seeing is now it's like, oh, it can do this. What else can it do? So not only the problems, but what are the new opportunities? And we've been spending more time opening opportunities versus just fixing problems, because sometimes you can put technology onto a broken workflow, a broken system, and you want to put it on top of that just because that's how it works. But in the end, what's the outcome? So we've been having these conversations around like, what outcome do you want to get to? Because the AI adoption, and there's been some studies, I think it was MIT and a few others, like, and I saw another study recently where it said that the buy-in in the enterprise of AI has gone down by 2%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's just more about the trend line.
Yeah.
So which way is it trending? So people have almost at the enterprise level started to buy a lot.
Yeah.
If you think of it, even in your phone, I don't know if you remember when you first had your smartphones first came out, I would actually know all of the settings in my phone. And then also apps, right? You'd have a few apps that you'd have on your phone, and then everybody then had an application. It just got overwhelming because you weren't able to find the right use case for what you wanted to get done. So I think people are still trying to figure out the difference between the productivity play and new opportunities. And then to your point earlier, there's a capability question. So if we have a job to be done, which could go into a form of a job description, what are the capabilities that we need to deliver on this work? Is it a person, full-time person? Is it a contractor? Is it a consultant? Or is it an agent?
What did you see? Curious at SIA. I mean, how many people were there? And then, what was some of the, obviously a lot of the conversations were around AI, but even in your individual conversations, were you seeing any trends in terms of some of the problems companies are having and some of the challenges they're having? I mean, you kind of alluded to it there with the adoption, but were there any other kind of challenges and trends that you were seeing with leaders when it comes to AI in their business?
I don't really talk to people about AI. I always talk to them about like what they're trying to get done.
Yeah.
And so as far as like how many people there and what the size was, there were a few different areas that I was in. Like one is there's some events I spent time in. I had more in-depth conversations. And then obviously the main area as well. And there was a guy that was talking, he was actually from Microsoft. He was really good. And he was actually talking a lot more about the opportunity side, which I thought was interesting, because a lot of the time you can get bogged down with what you're doing day to day, but then where's the opportunity? But the reality of it is like the narrative at the moment is people are aware of it. They're actually trying some things. So they are using AI in the corporation, even if you're not as an individual.
Yeah.
They're starting to try it. Not everybody, but it's not optimized. I think that there's a question. The timing feels like it's right. Like the technology is actually there in terms of where it needs to be in terms of capability, but not maximizing the capabilities. I would say though, in certain industries in particular, like healthcare, for instance, they're using a lot more AI at the moment. That's because it's high volume, high frequency, high volume types of roles. And kind of figuring out like how to bring that into play, I think has been key.
So you'll mention one of the big problems is a lot of tech and not necessarily a lot of adoption on teams, or there's like almost like a lag of this adoption of the technology. So what are your thoughts in terms of how leaders can get their teams to adopt more of the technology, and like what are some of the ways that you can get your team to engage and get employees to engage? Because obviously if you adopt new technology, you need them using it. How do you kind of help business leaders achieve that throughout the business?
When you're in a position where you're not entirely sure what the opportunity is, or if you're maximizing it, should I say, then the first thing that you've got to really do is figure out what you have. And that takes some reflection. Like, where are we really today? And then based on that, where are we trying to go? So I've talked a lot about purpose, but there's two other things which they're similar, but they're not the same. It's like, what's the mission?
Yeah.
And what's the vision? So the mission for EQ is zero admin. So we're trying to remove all the admin. And the vision is what it looks like when you get there. And that's the vision that we have to have a shared vision with our customers. So when there's zero admin, how does that look? And I think that many times people, because they're not entirely sure of the full capabilities, because it's very black box, they're not sure of what the vision is. So I always liken kind of climbing up a mountain. If you're trying to get to end up at the top of Mount Everest, you got to figure out what the path is you're going to take. You got to figure out what you need along the journey. You got to figure out who the people are that you want to bring with you. And so once you figured that out, then you can have an understanding of like how you can get there. So there's a planning process as well, which I think might have been skipped because everyone's experimenting. And I was like, look, play your experiment. I think you should. And then it's like, well, I just want AI. And so what we found is we're actually doing less projects talking about AI and more projects on, hey, do you want us to set up a space where you can connect with your customers? Whether that's physical or virtual. Like, yeah. How are you going to do it? Oh, by the way, we actually use AI to do parts of this, but in the end, you're just going to be able to meet 10 customers in person, or you're going to be able to connect with 80 customers on a webinar, or we're going to be able to build out your newsletter. So it's like figuring out where you want to get to. And then if AI can help, great. If not, don't use it.
Yeah. Sometimes just too quick to just think, hey, AI can fix this, or there's like that mentality right now of let's just look to AI right away versus actually looking at, could we actually do this without AI? Do you think people are jumping the gun too quick with that?
We have to dissect it. And when we say people, what do we mean? Because organizations have multiple layers of people. You've got the senior executive leadership of those that are actually using the tools themselves, and you've got this area in the middle. And I think that the vision, even if the senior leadership has a great vision, that might be really disconnected from the capabilities of the team. So you've got to audit your team and also train your team. And then there's a middle layer that may not want to let this go because they don't know what it's going to mean for them. People are unsure of where they're going to land with it. So it's like, why am I going to adopt something that might eat me? It's like bringing the fox into the hen's house in some regards. So there's this disconnect and this kind of reality check of what is AI going to do to the job. So we tell people all the time, like, you must be AI powered. And part of the role is to do ourselves out of a job to then do a better job, because the only job we really want to do is spending time connecting with people and understanding their opportunities and challenges. And I think that there are too many jobs that have been created that are actually low quality jobs where people have got stuck in them, whether it's entering data into a system or that's not a human job really.
Yeah.
Really, like no one likes to enter the data into their CRM either. And I think that if your job, not many people might, but if your job's like 50% of doing that, you're going to want to remove that. And then it's like, well, what do you do with the other 50%? So I think it's really having a real clear conversation from senior leadership as well as with your team on what they can do with AI and where they want to get to. What's the vision and what's the mission?
Yeah, it's huge. Talk to me about this. Okay, so people who dislike change are going to hate to be extinct. Okay, and I'm getting this from your newsletter, and for you guys who haven't subscribed to the newsletter yet, you need to be checking out the newsletter in your inbox every single week. But people who dislike change are going to hate being extinct. So talk to me about who said that, like what was the context of that, and I think there's obviously a lot of listeners, whether you're a leader, whether you're management, individual contributor. I think this is on everyone's mind, right? Like there is going to be these roles and maybe even people that have a huge challenge. So walk me through, like when you hear something like that, what do you think?
Yeah, so I actually heard it on another podcast. There was one from the founder of a company called Pendo. I actually think they got a really good product. I met him years ago and I was just listening to a podcast, like just as a random person listening to a podcast, was in the gym, and I was like, When I met him years ago, I thought he was a super smart guy. We haven't actually connected since, so yeah, shout out. It was said by the CEO, apparently, of FedEx, and it was one of his favorite quotes. And it resonated with me to think that the only constant is change.
Yeah.
If you know that, then you need to prepare for it. And so there's a time between this change and this outcome, and that time is the opportunity. So there's an opportunity for you to do something and for you to drive it. And some people are okay and happy with being driven. Some people will be driven, and some people want to drive the vehicle, but maybe they're a little bit frustrated. Maybe they're tired of an organization where it's hard for them to drive the vehicle. They can see the opportunity. But if you can galvanize people around you that want to do things better, you always put yourself in the best position to survive and not be extinct. Of course, there are external factors that we can't control, but especially in business, which is a confined, kind of defined way of operating, like a game almost. It's defined and it's not infinite. It's finite because you have rules and regulations and laws. And so you've got to play within these confines. The question is how do you win? Right? When you sign an employment agreement, those are the rules of the game. When you set up a company, a C Corp, that's the rules which are around it. So you're like in a structure. And within that structure, the question is that based on the direction that you're trying to go in, the mission or the vision, how do you win? And if you clearly understand that, then you'll know that as part of that structure, evolution is just part of it. So it hit home when I heard that quote, and I thought it was really interesting. And I think a lot of people that is always also quite funny as well.
I've thought about this a lot, and there's just two types of people, right? Too, it's like there's the curious, and there's people who aren't curious, and I think that curiosity piece is huge nowadays as well, and it kind of ties into that change. Like I think there's people that respond, like I hear it in conversations when I'm talking to a leader and say, "What are you thinking about with AI?" There's one of two responses. See, they're like, "Yeah, I've been doing this. I'm really excited about that," and it's all in. And then there's another response, which is, I just think you can tell that it is kind of driven by like that fear of change and the unknown. And the other word that's been coming up a lot recently is just uncertainty. And this word is just, it's becoming more and more regular, and it's been like that since the pandemic, really. I mean, that's really where like I started hearing the word a lot more. And now it's just uncertainty. But there's part of me which goes, just in line with this, it's like we almost have to lean into that uncertainty and go, it's okay that there's not actually anything that's certain. And we all have that uncertainty. You know, there's not very, very few people that can predict exactly what's going to happen. But you have to lean into that and see the opportunity, like you said, versus seeing that as, oh, well, this means I'm not going to be able to do how I've always done it. Or this means that maybe my job's going to look different. So I think it's changing that mindset as well. And I know that's something over the last few weeks for me. Like I've had to embrace that and look for the opportunity versus dwelling on, it's uncertain. We don't know where the market's going to go. And I don't see it necessarily changing.
If uncertainty is regular, by default, it's not uncertain. So that means you know something.
Yeah.
And if you know something, then what are you going to do with that information?
Yeah.
Can you build a foundation to build upon that? So if you know something's constantly evolving, you want to put yourself in a position where you can evolve with it, or you can change. If you don't believe that's true, then fair enough. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. There's two types of people. I subscribe to that time is also a constant, and people are evolving at different points in their life. And you can evolve as an individual. Like you can be 5 or 6 different individuals in terms of chapters in your life.
Yeah.
And some people might have seen this movie before. Some people might be new to it. And I don't always think that it needs to be like, hey, I'm going to dive right in and I need to change and I need to run and get all the AI and do all the stuff. I don't think that's true. But what I think is true is that having a real understanding in a position of where you sit and stand, because you could say, look, I'm not going to do anything, and this AI thing is not for us. That doesn't mean that you're going to be extinct. What that means is you've taken a position. And then the question is that position more defendable than the position of, hey, AI is coming and we need to do something about it. So I need to be aware. It's like, I'm going to go outside and I can see that there's a storm coming. So I'm going to take a rain jacket.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go outside and say, I don't really need one. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And maybe you will be fine if you can weather that storm and you know how to. But I think just having
like you said, you got to be able to defend that though, right? If that, you can't just be like, yeah, I'm just going to ignore it. It's like you got to still. It's like not necessarily doing something can still be a plan, but you have to be able to have a reason for that and be able to articulate that, I suppose.
Yeah, you can do anything, so you can ignore it, but the question is what are the consequences? And so if you ignore something that is like a big wave, you could get blindsided by it, and I think that's the challenge. And it'll be slow, then it's really, really quick. And if you're aware of it and there's a big wave and you're a surfer, then you just surf the wave and you're cool, right? It might not be for you, but if you want to stay ahead in technology and in business in that game that you're playing, you've definitely got to have an awareness of it and then have some kind of strategy around it that can help you get to where you need to go next. How are you thinking about, I suppose, just the conversations that you're having with your network, specifically when it comes to evolving? Because I know that you speak to a lot of individual recruiters as well as individual leaders as well. But what are you hearing specifically from them?
The conversations really just are around 3 or 4 different things. So when I meet with someone, I will ask them, hey, what's the purpose of this call? You're like, what are you interested in? Are you interested in AI in the future of work? Could be any recruiting help, could be you need a new job, could be just the market as a whole. I think the 2 things that people want to talk about right now are just the overall state of the market, which a lot of those conversations are around. And then, like I said, it's with AI. And I think those conversations go one of 2 ways. Again, like I said, it's either people are really leaning in, or they are just not in a position where they can, or obviously there's people who are just heads down working. And when you're working in an org and you've got a lot of things going on, you don't necessarily have the bandwidth to go out there and do as much research, with AI as well. So what I will say is I've noticed there's also this big emphasis and focus on networking and relationship. And that's something that I hear a lot, where there's a lot more demand now, a lot more people going to in-person events like dinners. There's a lot more dinners that are popping up where people are building connection. And then just community in general. I think there's a lot of people that are wanting, just more connection with people. So, I'm not sure if you're seeing the same thing. Obviously, you've done events for longer than I've done. I've only done events really the last few years in terms of going to events. But it really seems like there's that dynamic of people wanting to build real relationships, people wanting to go out as well. And it seems like it's kind of going back to where it was almost like pre-pandemic, before everything kind of went, 100% digital for that time period.
Yeah, so when I started EQ, and this still the name of the company is EQ Community, and so we start with a community first, and not because it was a trend, but because we believe in the power of connecting people. More recently, I agree. I think it started to come back where people are sick of being in front maybe of their computer screen for so long. There is a cognitive overload that's happening with the amount of information that people are seeing, receiving, and then therefore it's like, I know this AI opportunity is there and it exists, but I really want to spend time with the right people. So that's like, maybe let's take that from an executive level. Then there are those that are trying to connect with people. And they're the tactics that they were using before that might have worked with email, where everyone's getting flooded with email. And so email's becoming less attractive. And you and I talked about this as well. You mentioned some of the things you're doing with the phone. So I think that we're getting back to where people want to have more intimate conversations with the right people that could potentially help them. And if it's online or if it's even on social, wherever, right, it just feels like you're going through a stream of noise. That's a challenge. And people are choosing not to do that because they would prefer to spend that time in person. So for me, for instance, like when I was in Dallas, or I spoke at a responsive conference yesterday and I was in person, I just want to speak to the people that are there. I don't need anything else at that point in time. And somebody in the audience on one of the things said, oh, but meeting with people, is that scalable? And I said, does everything have to be scalable?
Yeah.
And so I think there's this mindset of like, we need numbers, big numbers. And we have the big numbers. Like we've got billions of data profiles, billions of data points. But the whole idea is that you can be hyper personalized to connect with the right people for the right opportunity at the right time. And I think that's what people are missing with AI. They think that the AI is about the connection or using it to connect you. It's not. It's about finding a needle in a haystack and the purple squirrel that used to be really hard to find and recruit, and that you'd have to do thousands of billion searches, or that person that you really want to connect with, and being able to cipher through all of that and saying, actually, I think you should meet with this person in this location at this point in time because there could be a good fit. That's what we're striving to, but I feel like that's welcome. Well, for me, and I build a lot of these things for me because as a sales and recruiting, it's like, well, what would I want to do if I was meeting with someone? I want to know a little bit about them. So that's the research side. I'd want to be able to connect with them on a level, have a conversation, and just see if there's opportunities to collaborate.
Yeah, I love that.
Things I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think that's such a massive point because I think when a lot of people think of even like with AI agents, for example, so I think a lot of people's mind does more go to, and I've seen it in my inbox recently. I think a lot of people do just go, hey, how do I scale this into a 1,000-person campaign? I've even been pitched by services where their whole service is, we'll set up 20 different domains for you and we'll just blast out 20,000 emails a week. I'm like, okay, how does that doesn't help. Instead of going, the best BD is always intentional. It's always got context. It always feels a little bit different, or it resonates in a different way. And I think using AI to be able to do that, like you said, like find that right information, understand the timing, use that data to figure out, okay, who's going to be my next ICP? So not who's my ICP now, but who's going to be the next one? How do I connect with them before they have this need that I can solve? I think if you could crack that and you can come up with ways to figure that out from business development point of view, it's huge. And then, like you said, tying that into these unscalable activities as well, like meeting people at conferences. You can't scale that. I guess you could go to 1,000 conferences in a year, but obviously, you're going to go to one or two a quarter, let's say. How do you maximize that and add that in? And so I think we've talked about it before, but I think a lot of the go-to-market strategies are kind of linear, and they'll be like digital, LinkedIn connection, DM,
sure,
email. But it's like you got to pull everything together in that ecosystem. And it's like, how do you use AI agents to help that and just get rid of like the scheduling the call or the making the calendars, right? The admin, right? That's the goal. Get rid of that admin.
Yeah, I was speaking to somebody earlier today and they were saying to me about sales has been hard. It's as hard as ever. Loads of people are reaching out and it's not working and blah, blah. And he was like, do you agree? And I was like, not really. It's like, why? And I said, because people should be coming to you. And he's like, okay, well, tell me more. What do you mean? I'm like, well, if you have something that's interesting and you have a way for people to come to you, then you're not always going out there and doing all the whole kind of outbound sales. And it's not necessarily that's inbound, but there's an awareness of what you're doing. Yeah. And then by the time that they connect with you, they know what it is that they're interested. I was outbound, cold call, hardcore. No one had ever met me, and I would be trying to do one call closes, do 50K deals, and I'd done that years ago. Those times are over, right? Like, you need to have continuity across your brand. So the thing that we're finding is like, look, yes, it might start with the data, and then once you've got data, you get the information. You take that information and you transfer it into insights, and those insights could be, hey, we're going to share some insights on a webinar. So we're creating an environment for you to have that conversation. And then it's like, we actually want to get deeper. We want to share some knowledge. Let's get in person, 10 or 15 people of us.
Yeah.
And then it makes it more intimate. If you're selling widgets and you've got to sell thousands of widgets, yes, you've got to get your product-led growth going. But if you're selling large deals, and let's say even large deals, but you're selling anything that's over even $10,000, right? The person probably wants to know that you're real. You can get away with the first one, but the second, third, and fourth one, they're going to probably want to have some idea that you or the company is real. And in recruiting, a lot of the time it's done over the phone, right? Especially with the candidate. But the client side, a lot of companies I know are meeting their clients in person, right? You can start to get some of the clients online. I look back on all the deals we've done across EQ, and I was like, wow, actually, the majority of these people, at some point, they'd either see me in person or I'd seen them in person. Not always, but maybe I was on stage and they spoke to me and said hello, and I didn't realize. So I had a bigger kind of scale, but there was at some point they were connected, or they met with somebody in my team in person at some point, or they knew someone that met them in person.
Yeah.
And so you still had to do your sales pitch, still had to do that stuff, but there was a stronger connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are craving. How do you set that up? And like you said at the beginning, like, how do you use AI to create and get that data so you're not having to do that? Because that's just...
Well, that's what we do at EQ. So anybody listening, if you want to get data at scale, and you want to turn into information and insights, that's what we do. And we've been doing it for companies and helping them get connected to the right people. It's how we're building our network and community. So do reach out. Sorry for that ad segue, but there's no ads on the pod apart from us.
Sorry, sponsored by EQ. So
yeah.
No, that was good. So talk to me too about this new kind of pricing, which I'm starting to see, or which you're starting to bring out, this outcome based pricing, right? Versus maybe just paying like for a program, right? You're paying for outcomes. So like, you think we're going to see more of this? Like, what's your thinking behind that? And I would love to know more about it.
Yeah. So I was talking to a couple of friends of mine, and they've actually embarked on a new journey in the freelance world. And that world is very much outcome based. Not always, but you can pay for time and materials, but it's also like, what do you deliver?
Yeah.
I feel like the agents are akin to that, because the value then gets assigned to what the deliverable is.
Yeah.
And also it's like, well, now I've seen all the agents, I've seen all the shiny toys. What could it do for me?
Yeah.
When somebody just wants the toy, then you can just sell them the toy. And so it's like on your mantelpiece, it's almost like something that you just look at. Oh, I've got these seats, I've got these licenses, I feel good. Because people buy for different reasons. As it gets to crunch time, it's like, well, what is this going to do for me? If you think that your AI can deliver high quality values, or the AIs that you're using, you may as well just sell the outcome, because there's bigger margins and it saves the customer time. So some of the things that we sell is like, hey, it's not necessarily agents, but do you want a webinar scheduled at this date with X amount of people? Or do you want us to help you with your newsletter? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Do you have a dinner set up? And we actually partner with service providers. So if there's any out there that are actually selling that stuff, we can power you with the data and the technology in order to do that, to help them deliver. And some of the AI tools do that really well. Like a company like Runway, they do that really well, I think, on the video editing. They have a talent network where you can get video editors that will use their tool in order to deliver. So we actually have the tools and the network to then deliver the service and solutions. Obviously, you and I have been discussing some of the partnerships that we're going to do around social media, right? Because you've got the craft and you've got the area, and we can provide you, empower you with the information and the data on like the agents behind the scenes. So I think there's going to be a whole area of like AI powered experts, and these AI powered experts will deliver your outcome. That's not necessarily our core business, but we're partnering with people that want to be AI powered experts. So if you're a recruiter out there and you want to be AI powered, there's ways to give you that access to that information so you can go and do it yourself, right? And deliver the tool, because you need a human in the loop for some of the complex tasks. As I've mentioned, not always, but at certain points in the loop.
Makes sense. And so I think it's, with that kind of mindset too, it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, where if you're going to get outcome, then you have to know what the problems are that you're solving. I'm curious though, like when you meet with prospects, when you meet with people, like how do you kind of get to that point where you're understanding what their problems are, and how often are you meeting with them where they don't even know, or if they don't, if they're unsure, like how do you help them get to that point where like, okay, yeah, actually, like maybe they know, hey, I need more revenue, right? I need more revenue in the business, right? We all do, but it's like, how do you kind of get to like what the actual problem is, and where whether you need data or you need an agent, like how do you get to that point?
Yeah, it's questions, right? It's so you say, I need more revenue. So how are you getting revenue today?
Yeah.
This is the way I'm getting revenue. Okay, great. If that's the way you're getting revenue, have you thought about different ways of getting revenue? What other areas have you explored? What's really working for you? What's not? What do you wish you could do? Why can't you do that? And then you get a good picture of where people are and understand where they are in their journey. And then based on that, then you can prescribe. It's like a doctor. We're like an AI doctor. You don't know necessarily what's wrong with you or what you want to do, but you're not feeling great, or you want to do something different. And so you can either have the AI doctor where you can be defensive, or where you're AI personal trainer. You come in and you say, all right, I'm feeling good, but I want to be at world championship level. And we come in like an AI personal trainer and we say, okay, these are the things you could do to get there. And some people they need a doctor. They're just not in a good position. And that's like the productivity versus the growth opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I like it, come in with the symptoms and then Dr. EQ.
Dr. EQ to rescue.
They should have our title on LinkedIn. All right, so it's Q4, right? Before we leave, Q4, give me the playbook. There's been theorizing, we've been talking. We're coming up to the last quarter of the year. What's the best way to really, some tactical advice here? How would you work things, and what's your playbook for Q4?
Yeah, so one of the things I've been talking about has been like, what are the key metrics that drive your business?
Yeah.
So one of them could be, if you're in the recruiting space, it could be, I want to reduce the time to hire by X% for each key role. And every role might be slightly different. You want to increase the qualified meetings that you have by X%. And then you want to increase the qualified maybe submissions that you have by X% that align with your team. So these are still core business metrics, but give them to the AIs. And if the AI is doing that as well, then great. But if you're not seeing it move the needle, you've got a question, well, why are you doing it?
I love that. Well, look, guys, I would say, number one, if you're not part of the community, you need to join the community. Where can people go to join the community?
You can go to, it's just under my Substack, just marcussawyerr.substack, but it's EQ AI community. So it was the original one. You can join, go to the Substack. If you go to eq.app, you'll see some of the things that we're doing. And then go from there. Where can people find you, Joel? What is the best way to find Mr. Lalgee?
LinkedIn, just Joel Lalgee. I'm the only one out there. But yeah, get a hold of me, especially if you're looking for, new executive role, director level and above. Love to have conversations. And anyone who's really interested in the topic of the future of work, I'm always down to have a chat. So get a hold of me, get a hold of us as well, and we'll have a new episode. By the way, I know not every episode has me in it, but I've checked out some of the other episodes as well, and it's awesome to just to hear the guests that you're having on as well. I know you just had Shelly Morales on the show. It was a great episode. So really cool to see the different guests that you're having on the show as well. Excited to be a part of it.
Great. All right, Joel, good speaking to you, and we'll continue the discussion soon. I hope everybody has a fantastic day. And if anything that is related to AI, you got any questions, feel free to reach out.
All right, Marcus, have a good one.
Cheers.
If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in your network, your team, your boss, or that recruiter still stuck in 2015. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss what's next in hiring and AI. Until next time.